All right, hello again, everybody. This is the Fantasy Sports Boss. Welcome to another podcast edition. It is Monday, January 6th, 2025. Going to do a wrap up on the late afternoon games, including the one-sided Detroit Lions victory over the Minnesota Vikings. The playoff matchups are set. Also, some interesting dynamics coming out of this Jets Dolphins game from both angles, both the Jets and the Dolphins. I'm going to get to. But of course, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We'll start with the Lions Vikings game, and honestly, this was the Jahmyr Gibbs show. I mean, if there's any doubt, if there was any doubt that Jahmyr Gibbs, on talent alone, is arguably the most impressive player in football, then last night certainly drove the point home. David Montgomery, of course, has been out for weeks now. Jahmyr Gibbs, the ultra explosive back at Alabama, finally getting the opportunity to be the bell cow, and in a 31-9 demolition. I want to make sure I get these numbers exactly right. 23 carries, 139 yards. That's 6 yards a carry. 3 touchdowns on the ground, and then he goes 5 for 31 and a fourth score in the passing game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta also had big games here. Jared Goff, a touchdown, did throw 2 interceptions, and the Lions with an easy cakewalk victory, shockingly easy, as they sweep the Vikings, and they grab the number 1 seed. The Vikings get the number 5 seed. Now, listen, David Montgomery will be back next year, so Jahmyr Gibbs, if there was no David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs is the number 1 pick in fantasy next season. Okay, even ahead of Jamar Chase and certainly ahead of Bijan Robinson. With Montgomery coming back, that puts him behind both of these guys, but I think he's right there with CeeDee Lamb in the 5-6 range in the middle of round 1, with Amon-Ra St. Brown going towards the end of the first round from this Lions game as well. But just an unbelievable performance, along with Bryce Young and Bo Nix. They were the stars of the day yesterday. Just an unbelievable game there. Now, I talked about it on yesterday's podcast with Sam Darnold, because one of the biggest issues, once the offseason hits, is what are the Vikings going to do at quarterback? Do they bring Sam Darnold back on a contract extension, or do they go with the rookie J.J. McCarthy, who tore up his knee as a rookie during the early stages of training camp this past summer? And the one caveat I said was, if Darnold struggles in this game against Detroit and then hits rock bottom in the playoffs, the first playoff game, and certainly now they're going to be on the road, then I think that changes the equation and puts it back in play for J.J. McCarthy to be the guy. Now, half of that has already happened. Darnold was ineffective yesterday, no touchdowns. He didn't throw in any interceptions, but he just couldn't move the ball. If the Vikings go out and lay an egg in that first playoff game, I think that really gives the front office pause. All right, maybe we should, sell high, not even sell high because they're not going to bring him back, but just cut bait on Darnold. They squeezed everything they could out of him, and now they bring in, they give the job to J.J. McCarthy and see what he can do. And of course, in this system with Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and T.J. Hawkinson, this is arguably the most effective trio of receivers in the NFL. I think McCarthy will be just fine. And then Darnold could look to sign with somebody like the New York Giants or the Las Vegas Raiders, teams that now are not in that top 2 spot for the NFL draft. So we'll have to see what happens there. A couple other things with these late games. I wanted to talk about the Jets game, and certainly here in New York, this gets quite a bit of attention. So Aaron Rodgers tosses 4 touchdowns in the game. Let me just pull up the stats here. 4 touchdowns in the game for Aaron Rodgers, caps his season with 28 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions, almost 4,000 yards, and he plays in every game, which, again, at the age of 41 is pretty impressive. I know the Jets, I'm not a Rodgers fan. I've stated multiple times I'm sick of all of his self-serving nonsense and all the other garbage that comes along with him. But 28 touchdown passes, 11 interceptions at the age of 41, that's pretty damn good. Now, throwing the ball down the field was more than a little bit of an issue this year. He doesn't move well in the pocket anymore either. He's taking a lot of sacks, but he's still delivering the ball on time for the most part. The shorter intermediate range, he can still cut you up. And a 28-11 split, touchdowns and interceptions, that's pretty damn impressive, right? So I know numbers don't always tell the whole story, but that was a fairly decent haul for Rodgers at this stage of the game for him. Garrett Wilson goes over 100 receptions. There's a lot of chatter that he wants out. He doesn't want to play in the shadow of Davante Adams, but the caveat there is that both Rodgers and Adams could be out, and Wilson could then ascend back into that number one guy. You know, I've been chasing Garrett Wilson each of the last 2 years because I believe in the talent. Like, he's just so talented, top 10 talent at wide receiver, no doubt. And he has made the best of some really horrible situations, particularly in his first 2 years in the league with Zach Wilson, to still post really good numbers. But there's still more juice to be squeezed from the body of work that Wilson can supply. I don't think there's any question about it. And from a fantasy perspective, he's a late first-round pick on talent alone, but his fate will, in terms of his value in 2025, will be linked to whether the Jets bring back Rodgers and whether they bring back Davante Adams. All right? The Jets are fascinating. You know, they're picking 7th. They have Tyrod Taylor under contract. They're not close enough to get Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward. And let me tell you something. There is a lot of divergent opinions on those two guys in terms of how good can they be. And I myself, and a lot of people agree with me, that if they came out last year, they would have been drafted behind Drake May, certainly Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, maybe even Michael Penix, and probably was going to be right there with Bo Nix. Like, they would not have been in the top 3, for sure. And I talked about Michael Penix on the live stream yesterday, so go back and see what I said there. He was very, very impressive yesterday. But yeah, and on from the Miami side, Tyreek Hill basically said when he met with the media yesterday, and he only caught 2 passes for 30 yards. He was horrendous the second half. Really, the whole season, he just wasn't good. He looks like he lost a step. Not surprising when a speed-based receiver hits the age of 30. That's when things start to go, to the negative side in terms of losing some speed and injuries and whatnot. He basically said he's out. He does not want to come back to Miami next year. If you saw the press conference, you know what I'm talking about. He does not want to come back. So what does this mean? Jalen Waddle, who caught over 100 passes as a rookie, certainly would then become a major person of interest. And then my new favorite, Jonnu Smith, who does have a second year on his contract. I wasn't sure about that when discussing him previously. He has a second year on his deal. I think Jonnu Smith is going to be, again, somebody I'm going to target very, very heavily. He caught 9 for 56 yesterday. Jonnu Smith is going to be my tight end on the majority of my teams next year. I don't think there's any question. Coming back into this offense, hopefully Mike McDaniel is still the coach. And with no Tyreek Hill, if they do move on from him or they trade him, whatever they do with him, and does Tyreek Hill go back to Kansas City? You know, I think that, and certainly Kansas City with Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster, they welcome players back home for sure. They never close the door on anybody once they leave town. I think Jonnu Smith becomes an even bigger person of interest for me and those who don't want to pay the freight on Trey McBride and Brock Bowers next year. So that's something we have to look at. So let's talk about Bo Nix. All right, the Broncos left no doubt 38-0. Listen, they're going to the playoffs. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody saw Bo Nix. He throws 4 touchdown passes yesterday. Completed, I believe, his first 18. 26 of 29, 321, 4 touchdown passes. He ran for, 47 yards. He's now up to 29 touchdown passes on the season. Over 400 rushing yards. Holy shit. Like, I knew Bo Nix, watching him in college, gets the ball out quick, very decisive. He looks like a faster Drew Brees and a Sean Payton offense. You never want to compare anybody to Drew Brees, but Bo Nix looks beyond legit. He just took a team that everybody, and myself included, thought would be one of the worst teams in the NFL this year, with no running game, with Cortland Sutton, who doesn't have any speed. He's a jump ball specialist. He took that team to the playoffs and threw 29 touchdown passes as a rookie with a dual threat game. I'm about to blow it up next year and just go fully in on Bo Nix and Drake May and just alternate between the two based on the matchups. As a matter of fact, if the season started tomorrow, that would be my plan. So, wow, that's all I got to say. Now, the sophomore slump is a real thing. Look at CJ Stroud. But, look at Bryce Young, who went bonkers yesterday and has had a really nice second half of the season. So, this is something I'm really going to toy with throughout the offseason. How Bo Nix, I think it's legit. He runs. He's got a good, tremendous accuracy, very decisive. That Oregon system really honed in on his strengths in terms of throwing guys open, quick reads, getting the ball out. But he also throws the deep ball fairly well if you watched him. I am really intrigued with Bo Nix for next year. I'm really of the mind next year to just go crazy with stocking up on wide receivers and running backs the first 5 rounds. Get Jonnu Smith in round 6. Get Bo Nix in round 7. Yeah, I'm really thinking of doing that in all my leagues next year. Would you love to have Jalen Hurts? Would you love to have Pat Mahomes? Would you love to have, Josh Allen? Well, I drafted Mahomes and Hurts in 2 of my leagues, and I didn't come up with anything. Josh Allen, in all 3 of my leagues, he didn't make the finals in any of them. In all 3 leagues I was in this year, the Josh Allen owner did not make the finals. So, the 3 winning teams in my 3 leagues, Baker Mayfield was the quarterback in 1, Jared Goff was the quarterback in the other, and Jaden Daniels. Those were the 3 winning quarterbacks in the 3 leagues I was in. Let me know. Post in the comments below. In all the leagues you were in, I want to see this from everybody. Post the winning quarterbacks in all the leagues you were in. Whoever won your league, tell me who the quarterback was. All right? The primary starter. And post in the comments. I'm really curious to see that. Because I still believe when you draft a quarterback early in, second, third round, and I've fallen prey to this, it doesn't exactly work out. And then you have the situation with taking a tight end in the second round. That, even more than the quarterback, to me, doesn't work out. And there's going to be a lot of temptations with Brock Bowers next year to do that. Brock Bowers winds up finishing with 112 catches. Yesterday, Bowers goes 4 for 50. The Raiders dropped 34-20 to the Chargers. Listen, there's nothing more you can say about Brock Bowers that I haven't already said. The best draft pick, bar none, this past season. Used all over the field. Matchup nightmare. The guy is a monster. He's going to be a second-round pick next year. I'm not going to do that. I don't believe... Kelsey was the one guy I made an exception for, or I toyed with the idea because he was just so dominant and he caught 1 million touchdowns. He hasn't done that the last 2 years. But Brock Bowers, to me, was light on the touchdowns. PPR, though, he was a cheat code. The part of the value of Bowers, and he made the finals in 2 of my 3 leagues, is that he was an 8th round pick in most leagues. That's not obviously going to happen next year. So that's a situation that I probably would avoid. And here's the other thing. In this game yesterday. So Quentin Johnston goes 13 for 186 yesterday. And if you recall how bad he was as a rookie, this is a really nice story of development from year 1 to year 2 when it looked like Quentin Johnston was a colossal bust as a rookie with the Chargers. And then this year, gets coached up, really from the get-go this season was really, really effective, and then he finishes with a bang. Quentin Johnston, Lad McConkey's the star, he's the guy, but Quentin Johnston really did some nice things. A lot of things came up smelling like roses for the Chargers. Really, really, really impressive stuff. Jim Harbaugh, obviously he is worth his weight in gold. That's how good of a coach this guy is. The playoff field is set. So here's where we're at. Let's take a look at this. The Chargers, we just talked about them. They're going to play Saturday at 4:30 against the Texans. I knew that was coming. When I saw the matchups, I figured they would be in that first game because they're not, it's not the sexiest pick. You don't have major TV markets there. And then the Prime Video game, which is such bullshit. This Prime playoff game in Prime. I mean, put it on national television for God's sakes. The Steelers and Ravens will be the Saturday night game. Hoping to get some snow. They usually make that Saturday night game from the cold weather climate. So the Ravens and the Steelers, I think the Ravens are going to go bonkers. All right, let's see. All right, so moving to Sunday. 1 o'clock, Bills, Broncos. Listen, I don't think you can count out anything when it comes to the Broncos, the way they've been playing. But the Bills, they should be set for a good result there. I think that they're going to win that game. The Eagles and the Packers, man, this was not good yesterday. Jordan Love winds up getting hurt. Christian Watson, non-contact injury. He looks like he's done. The guy just can't stay healthy. What a disaster for the Packers. Jalen Hurts should be cleared by then from his concussion. You have Jordan Love injured again. Not a good situation. Right elbow injury. Malik Willis came in. Malik Willis has played well when he's come in for Jordan Love this year, but that could be a really big problem for them. And then you have Sunday evening Commanders Bucks. That is going to be a absolute fireworks show offensively. Baker Mayfield, Jaden Daniels throwing the ball all over the place. Daniels a little sore yesterday. He came out of the game early, but he should be fine. That one, if you're going to pick a lower seed to upset, I think the Commanders could win that game. And then finally, Monday night, the Rams and the Vikings. And again, the big thing there, how does Sam Darnold play? Because if he doesn't play well, there's going to be some issues there as far as where they're going to who they're going to side with in terms of bringing back as a starting quarterback next year, whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Sam Darnold. NFL draft order, we started talking about this yesterday. The Titans have the number 1 pick, the Browns at number 2, 2 QB needy teams, and then the Giants at number 3. Here's the dynamic. The Titans, Will Levis is a bust. We all know that. They're going to take a quarterback. You would think they're going to take Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward. Now, the real interesting decision is at 2 with the Browns. They have that ridiculous guaranteed contract with Deshaun Watson. They're toying with the idea of bringing in somebody to compete with him, such as Kirk Cousins. They would have to pay Cousins virtually nothing because the Falcons would have to eat the contract. So that has been rumored already. Or do they bring in the guy that the Titans don't take, whether it's Ward or Sanders? Or do they go in with a head coach who needs to win now? They just cleaned out the offensive coordinator, offensive line coach. The hot seat is there now for Kevin Stefanski. Do they bring in Travis Hunter, who's the best player in this draft? That is something I think I could absolutely see happening. Or do they trade down? Do they trade out to a team like the Raiders or the Jets or the Giants even to jump one spot to get the quarterback they want? As a Giants fan at 3, I've come around more to the idea of, okay, I'd be perfectly happy with Travis Hunter. You pair Travis Hunter with Malik Nabers, and Nabers had just a breathtaking rookie season considering the garbage he's had to deal with offensively. That's something I could totally see happening. So, and then you take a shot. Like if the Giants get Travis Hunter, then you sign maybe a Justin Fields. Now we all know Justin Fields has his own warts. There's no doubt about it. He's just not a winning quarterback. A lot of issues throwing the football. Played well with the Steelers before he got benched for Russell Wilson. So that he's got that going for him at least. But I really wouldn't want to see that though. There's a lot of moving parts that are going to be in play with this situation at the top of the draft for 2025. But we're going to have plenty of time to go over that. And how about the Patriots canning Gerard Mayo before the day's even out? They win their finale against the Bills. And don't tell me, you won't convince me that part of the reason they jumped on firing him, well, 2 reasons. 1, they want Mike Vrabel. They want to keep him in the Patriots family. And 2, they're pissed off. Robert Kraft and the family are pissed off that they won that game because it cost them the number 1 pick. You can't convince me for a second that didn't have to, that they were so chapped about winning that game that they just said, the hell with it, he's out tonight. Which is a really bad look if you think about it. Because, it's always not spoken about. And certainly if you watched that Giant game yesterday, they weren't going all out to win that game. Conspiracy theorists had a field day with that one because some of those penalties the Giants took were just so unbelievably bad, you just wonder. And just they're not pushing the offensively, you have to think. But it's never really spoken about. But the Patriots winning that game and then Gerard Mayo getting fired before he even sits down for dinner. Usually they give these guys a courtesy, and they won. That was a little surprising to me. But they clearly are targeting Vrabel. And Mayo didn't win himself a lot of admirers in that organization. They just were bad this year. So that today, and we're going to get a lot of that today too. Interesting to see who's going to get fired, who's going to stay. We'll discuss all of that in another podcast. But anyway, just wanted to jump in and discuss what went on yesterday. So, again, hit that subscribe button. Send me questions. I'm not going to do the emails today. I'm a little pressed for time. RangerFan28@yahoo.com. RangerFan28@yahoo.com. Tell me your name, where you're from. And I will use those questions on future podcasts, so make sure you tune in for that. So, just a crazy day in the NFL. It's a crazy season. Can't wait for the playoffs. And we will chat soon. Take care, everybody.